Sign here and you'll never see your daughter again. My mother-in-law's perfectly manicured nail tapped the contract twice, her smile as cold as the marble beneath my trembling hands. I stared at the document that would legally surrender my parental rights to Emma, my 3-year-old daughter who was currently napping upstairs, oblivious to the fact that her mother was about to become a stranger. The words blurred through my tears. Voluntary termination of parental rights. Financial settlement of $200,000. Immediate vacating of premises. "You're insane," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Ryan would never allow this." Patricia Sutherland's laugh was like shattered glass. "Ryan already signed his portion this morning, dear. He agrees you're unstable. The postpartum depression, the medications, the incident at Emma's birthday party that you don't even remember." She leaned closer, her Chanel perfume suffocating me. "Everyone saw you, Lauren. Everyone knows you're broken." My hands went numb. The incident she referenced, the one I'd spent 6 months trying to piece together through fragmented memories and other people's horrified whispers, had happened during Emma's first birthday. I'd blacked out completely. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed with Ryan holding my hand, his eyes filled with what I thought was concern but now recognized as something darker. Calculation. "I want to talk to Ryan." I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. The room tilted. "He's with his lawyer, finalizing the custody arrangement. You see, Lauren, this can go one of 2 ways." Patricia's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "You can sign, take the money, and disappear quietly. Or we can go to court where every psychiatrist, every doctor, every family member will testify to your mental instability. We have medical records, witness statements, and very compelling evidence that you're a danger to Emma. You'll lose anyway, but you'll lose publicly, expensively, and you'll never touch a penny of Sutherland money again." The walls were closing in. I thought about Emma upstairs, her small hands that grabbed my fingers every morning, the way she said "mama" like it was the most important word in the universe. My daughter, my entire world. "And if I sign?" My voice didn't sound like my own. "You walk away today. The money will be wired within 48 hours. You'll have enough to start over somewhere far from here. You'll never contact Emma, never attempt to see her, never disrupt her life again. She'll grow up healthy, stable, and loved. Isn't that what a good mother wants?" The manipulation was so elegant I almost missed it. Almost. "Hey, my friend, hope you're doing well. Drop a comment and let me know how you're feeling about this story so far and where you're watching from. Some stories are too close to my heart to share on YouTube. I send those, along with little life lessons and surprises, to my email circle. If you'd like to be part of it, you can join with the link in the description. I met Ryan Sutherland at a hospital fundraiser where I was working as an event coordinator, barely making ends meet while putting myself through night school for my business degree. He was a pediatric surgeon, 3rd-generation Sutherland, heir to a medical dynasty that owned half the hospitals in the state. When he asked for my number, I actually laughed. Men like him didn't date women like me. But he persisted. For 3 months, he pursued me with an intensity that felt like being the center of the universe. Flowers arrived at my tiny apartment daily. He'd show up at my classes with coffee. He introduced me to his parents within 6 weeks, which Patricia later told me was unprecedented. "You make him happy in a way I've never seen," Patricia had said during that first dinner, squeezing my hand across the table. "He needs someone real, someone who isn't impressed by the Sutherland name." I should have recognized the test in her words, should have heard the unspoken requirement. Stay unimpressed, stay humble, stay less than. We married 8 months later in a ceremony that cost more than my childhood home. Patricia handled every detail, overriding my suggestions with practiced ease. "Trust me, dear, I know what works for Sutherland weddings." I was too intoxicated by Ryan's attention, too grateful for the life raft he had thrown me, to recognize I was drowning in different waters. The first year was a fairy tale wrapped in silk and privilege. Ryan was attentive, generous, and seemed genuinely invested in my dreams. He encouraged my business studies, helped me network with his connections, and talked endlessly about the family we'd create together. I slept asleep every night feeling like the luckiest woman alive. Then I got pregnant with Emma, and the subtle shifts began. "Maybe put the graduate program on hold," Ryan suggested over breakfast one morning, his hand resting on my barely there bump. "Pregnancy is stressful enough without adding academic pressure." "Just one semester," echoed Patricia during our weekly lunch. "You'll have plenty of time for careers later. Right now, you're growing a Sutherland heir." The way she said heir made my skin prickle, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Pregnancy hormones, everyone assured me. Everything would be fine. Emma arrived 6 weeks early, a tiny perfect storm that nearly killed us both. I hemorrhaged badly during delivery, lost consciousness, and woke up 3 days later to find I'd missed my daughter's first cries, first bath, first everything. Ryan and Patricia had been there for all of it. "We took such good care of her," Patricia cooed, holding Emma like a trophy. "She barely even noticed you weren't there."
The postpartum depression hit like a freight train. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. Other days I stood over Emma's crib, terrified I'd somehow hurt her through sheer incompetence. Ryan hired a night nurse, then a day nurse. Then Patricia started dropping by every morning to help. Slowly, methodically, I was edited out of my own daughter's life. The medications came next, first for depression, then anxiety, then insomnia. Ryan monitored every pill, every dose, always with such concern in his eyes. "I just want you healthy, Lornan. Emma needs her mother." But I wasn't getting healthier. I was getting foggier. Entire afternoons would disappear. I'd find myself in rooms with no memory of walking there. Once I discovered Emma at the park with Patricia, and when I asked why no one told me they were leaving, Patricia showed me a text conversation where I'd apparently given permission. I had no memory of sending those messages. "The medication sometimes affects short-term memory," my psychiatrist explained, adjusting my dosage again. Later, I'd learned Ryan had personally selected this psychiatrist, that she'd been feeding her information about my episodes. The birthday party incident was the final nail. According to witnesses, I'd stood up during Emma's cake cutting, screamed about poison, and tried to smash the cake onto the ground before Ryan restrained me. I had been so violent that 3 guests had to help hold me down while Patricia called an ambulance. I remembered none of it, not a single second. When I was released from the psychiatric hold 72 hours later, Ryan picked me up with Emma's car seat conspicuously empty. "She's staying with my parents temporarily, just until we're sure you're stable." Temporary became a week, then 2 weeks, then a month. And now, sitting in Patricia's study with that contract bleeding ink under my shaking hands, I finally understood. This had always been the plan. Every medication, every episode, every concerned face hiding calculated cruelty. They'd systematically destroyed my credibility, isolated me from Emma, and constructed an airtight case for my unfitness. I was never meant to keep my daughter. I was just the incubator. "I need time to think," I managed, pushing back from the desk. Patricia's mask slipped for just a second, revealing something feral underneath. "You have until 5 o'clock today. After that, the offer expires and we proceed with litigation. Choose wisely, Lauren. Think about what's best for Emma, not your own selfish desires." I stumbled out of that house into the harsh afternoon sun, my mind fracturing into 1,000 desperate pieces. I had 6 hours to decide whether to fight or flee. 6 hours to figure out how a woman with no money, no family, and a documented history of mental instability could possibly win against the Sutherland Empire. I drove aimlessly for an hour before finding myself parked outside Dr. Rebecca Chen's office. She wasn't my psychiatrist. She was the independent therapist I'd seen exactly twice before Ryan convinced me I should stick with our family doctor. Something about her felt different, though. She asked questions that seemed designed to help me think rather than lead me to predetermined conclusions. I walked in without an appointment, looking like a disaster. The receptionist took one look at my face and disappeared into the back. 5 minutes later, Dr. Chen emerged. "Lauren Sutherland, I wondered if I'd ever see you again?" Something in her tone made me break. "I need help. I need someone to tell me I'm not crazy." She guided me into her office and locked the door. For the next hour, I spilled everything. The memory gaps, the medications, the slow erasure of my role in Emma's life, the contract currently sitting in Patricia's study. Dr. Chen listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with every detail. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. "Lauren, I'm going to share something with you that violates typical doctor-patient confidentiality, but I believe your life depends on it." She pulled out a file. 3 years ago, another woman came to me with a remarkably similar story. She was married to a Sutherland associate, had a young child, and was experiencing the same progressive mental symptoms you've described. She was convinced her husband was drugging her. My blood turned to ice. Was he? We never got to find out. She signed away custody, took the settlement money, and moved across the country. 6 months later, she died in a car accident. Single-vehicle collision, toxicology showed high levels of antidepressants and sedatives in her system. The room spun. "You think they killed her?" "I think they made her life unlivable until she removed herself from it. And I think they're using the same playbook with you." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Lauren, everything you've described fits a specific pattern of coercive control and possible medication tampering. The memory gaps, the personality changes, the episodes you don't remember, those aren't consistent with postpartum depression. They're consistent with benzodiazepine poisoning." "Ryan's been giving me my medications personally, every single dose." "I want you to let me run a blood panel right now. We need to document what's in your system before you're pressured into signing anything."
She took me to a private lab, and while we waited for preliminary results, she made phone calls. To a lawyer friend who specialized in custody cases, to a toxicologist, to a private investigator who'd worked family court cases involving wealthy families. By the time the preliminary blood work came back, I had a team assembling, and the results were devastating. "You have benzodiazepines in your system at levels inconsistent with therapeutic use," the toxicologist explained over speakerphone. "These levels would explain the memory loss, the personality changes, and the blackouts you've experienced. More importantly, based on the half-life calculations, you're being dosed daily, probably multiple times daily." "Ryan," I breathed, "in my medications." "We need hair follicle testing to establish a pattern," Dr. Chen said, "and we need to get you somewhere safe immediately." The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Victoria Torres, was already building strategy. "If they've been systematically drugging you to create grounds for custody termination, that's attempted kidnapping through coercion. It's criminal, but we need hard evidence before we move." "The contract expires at 5, I said, checking my phone. 2 hours left. "Perfect," Victoria smiled dangerously. "Let them think they've won." The plan came together with surgical precision. I would go back to Patricia's house at 4:45, agitated and defeated. I would ask to see Emma one last time before signing. The house had cameras everywhere, Patricia's insurance against staff theft, which meant whatever happened next would be recorded. Dr. Chen gave me an injection, flumazenil. It'll temporarily reverse the benzodiazepine effects. You're going to feel clear-headed for the first time in months, but it'll wear off in a few hours. Use that window. I arrived at the Sutherland mansion at 4:47, looking appropriately broken. Patricia answered the door with barely concealed triumph. "You made the right choice," she said, guiding me toward the study. "I want to see Emma first. Please, just 5 minutes to say goodbye." Patricia hesitated, then smiled. Of course, a mother should have that closure. She led me upstairs to the nursery where Emma was playing with blocks, a nanny watching over her. The moment Emma saw me, her face lit up completely. "Mama!" She ran to me on wobbly toddler legs, and I caught her, breathing in her baby shampoo scent. "Hi, sweet girl," my voice cracked. Mama loves you so much. Love you, Emma parroted, patting my face with sticky hands. Patricia checked her watch. 5 minutes, Lauren. I played with Emma, memorizing every detail while my mind raced with the clarity Dr. Chen's injection had provided. For the first time in over a year, my thoughts were sharp, focused, and I could see exactly how they'd orchestrated everything. The medications Ryan personally administered, the psychiatrist appointments where he'd always accompanied me, subtly influencing the narrative, the episodes that coincidentally happened when I was alone with only the Sutherland family as witnesses, the gradual isolation from my old friends explained away as my need for rest and recovery. When Patricia announced time was up, I walked downstairs with my head down, defeated. Ryan was waiting in the study now, looking uncomfortably sympathetic. "Lauren, I'm sorry it came to this." I stared at the man I'd married, searching for any trace of the person who'd once made me feel loved. There was nothing behind his eyes but cold calculation. "Before I sign," I said softly, "I just need to understand. Why?" Ryan and Patricia exchanged glances. Patricia nodded slightly. "Emma deserves stability," Ryan said carefully. "You've been unwell, Lauren. Surely you can see that. This is what's best for her. And the money? The settlement? To help you move forward, start fresh somewhere else." He pushed the contract closer. "We're not monsters, Lauren. We're trying to do right by everyone." I picked up the pen, and Patricia's shoulders relaxed, victory at hand. "Just one question," I said, letting my hand shake dramatically. "When did you start putting the extra medication in my pills? Before or after Emma was born?" The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Ryan's face went carefully blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The benzodiazepines, the ones that's causing my blackouts and personality changes, the ones that aren't part of my prescribed medications." I met his eyes steadily, and I saw the exact moment he realized I was clear-headed, that whatever chemical haze he'd kept me in had lifted. "When did you start drugging me, Ryan?"
Patricia moved toward the door, but I was faster. "Don't bother. Dr. Rebecca Chen has my preliminary blood work showing non-therapeutic levels of benzodiazepines. A toxicologist has confirmed the levels are consistent with systematic poisoning over months. And before you think about destroying evidence, I've had hair follicle samples taken that will show a long-term pattern." "This is absurd," Patricia snapped. "You're having another episode." "Am I? Then you won't mind if we call the police right now and have them run tests? You won't mind if we have an independent doctor examine my medication bottles? You won't mind if we pull the surveillance footage from this house showing Ryan personally administering my pills every single day?" Ryan stood up slowly. "Lauren, you're clearly confused. The stress." "The birthday party incident," I interrupted. "What did you actually give me that day? Because I've realized something interesting. Every single one of my blackouts happened after I consumed food or drink provided exclusively by you or your mother. The coffee Ryan brought me that morning, the champagne toast Patricia insisted I have. I never actually hurt Emma or threatened anyone, did I? You just needed witnesses to see me unconscious and confused while you told them whatever story served your purpose." The silence was deafening. "You can't prove any of this," Patricia said finally, her voice like steel. "Actually, I can. I've spent the last 3 hours documenting everything, every dose, every incident, every witness you've manipulated. And I filed an emergency motion with family court requesting immediate forensic testing of all medications in this house, along with a temporary restraining order preventing either of you from being alone with Emma pending investigation." Brian's mask finally cracked. "You have no money for lawyers, no credibility. No one will believe you. Victoria Torres believed me. She's representing me pro bono because apparently this isn't the first time a woman has come to her with stories about the Sutherland family's creative custody solutions. In fact, I think you both know exactly who I'm talking about." Patricia's face went white. "Get out of my house." "Gladly, but I'm taking Emma with me. The emergency order grants me temporary custody pending the investigation." I pulled out my phone, where Victoria was already on the line. "The police are outside now. They'll escort us safely off the property." "You're making a huge mistake," Ryan said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "We will destroy you." "You already tried," I said quietly. "But I'm still here, and now everyone's going to know exactly what you did." The next 3 months were warfare. The Sutherlands hired 6 attorneys. They filed countermotions claiming I'd fabricated evidence. They had colleagues testify to Ryan's sterling character. They painted me as a vindictive ex-wife with delusions. But Victoria was relentless. She subpoenaed medical records and found inconsistencies in my prescribed medications versus what was actually in my system. She deposed the nanny, who broke down and admitted Patricia had instructed her to document my erratic behavior, whether or not it actually occurred. She found the other woman Dr. Chen had mentioned, the one who'd supposedly died in a car accident, and proved her death had happened after she'd tried to reclaim custody of her child. Most damning of all, she got the pharmacist. The man who'd been filling my prescriptions at Ryan's request admitted under oath that Ryan had been requesting quantities inconsistent with proper dosing and that he'd filled them without question, because Dr. Sutherland knew what he was doing. The forensic toxicologist's report was devastating. I'd been given enough benzodiazepines to keep me in a perpetual fog for over 18 months. The dosing pattern showed careful calculation to maintain just enough consciousness to function, but not enough to fully understand what was happening around me. Ryan's medical license was suspended pending investigation. Patricia was charged as an accessory, and I got Emma back. But the real victory came 6 months later, when I was finally strong enough to face what they'd stolen from me. I'd missed 18 months of my daughter's life. Her first words, her first steps, her first everything. I'd been present, but not actually there, a ghost haunting my own existence while they systematically erased me. The grief was overwhelming. Some nights I'd stand over Emma's crib watching her sleep and sob for all the moments I couldn't remember, could never reclaim. The rage came in waves too, hot and bitter. They'd stolen my daughter's first years, my own memories, my sense of self. But gradually, with Dr. Chen's help and a support group for survivors of coercive control, I started reclaiming my life. Not the life I'd had before Ryan, but something stronger. Something mine. I finished my graduate degree, started a small consulting firm helping other survivors navigate legal and financial recovery after abuse, testified at the state legislature about the gaps in family court that allowed coercive control to flourish. Emma thrived. Away from the Sutherlands' toxic influence, she became joyful, confident, secure. She didn't remember the darkness, thank God. To her, it was just me and her against the world, and that was enough.
The day Ryan's medical license was permanently revoked, I took Emma to the park. We fed ducks, played on swings, and ate ice cream that dripped down our chins. Normal things. Beautiful things. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Patricia's pleading out. She'll serve 18 months. Ryan's facing malpractice suits from 3 other families with similar stories. It's over." I looked at Emma, her face sticky with chocolate ice cream, her laugh pure and unself-conscious. My daughter. My whole heart. It wasn't over. It was beginning. 3 years later, I stood in a courtroom again, but this time as an expert witness in another custody case. Another woman, another wealthy family, another pattern of coercive control hidden behind concern and medical authority. I told my story from beginning to end. Every manipulation, every violation, every moment they tried to convince me I was broken, when really, they were breaking me. When I finished, the judge was silent for a long moment.
Then she ruled in the mother's favor, granting her full custody and ordering psychiatric evaluation of the father. Outside the courthouse, the woman grabbed my hands. "Thank you. Thank you for speaking up, for fighting, for showing me it was possible." I squeezed back. "You did the fighting. I just showed you where to aim." That night, Emma and I made dinner together in our small apartment, dancing to music and making a mess. She was 6 now, starting to ask questions about her father, about why we lived alone. "Mama, why doesn't Daddy visit?" I knelt down to her level, choosing my words carefully. "Sometimes people make choices that hurt others, even people they're supposed to love. Your daddy made some of those choices. But that doesn't mean you did anything wrong, and it doesn't mean you're not loved completely by me." She considered this with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could muster. "Did he hurt you?" "Yes, sweetheart. But I'm okay now. We're okay." She hugged me tight. "I'm glad we're okay." "Me too, baby girl. Me too." The final piece of justice came unexpectedly, 5 years after I'd walked out of Patricia's study, refusing to sign that contract. I received a call from a lawyer I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Sutherland? I mean, Ms. Lauren?" "Yes?" "I'm calling regarding the estate of Patricia Sutherland. She passed away last week, and you're named in her will." I nearly dropped the phone. "I'm what?" Patricia had left me a letter and a safety deposit box. Against every instinct, I went to claim them. The letter was handwritten, her elegant script shaky in places. "Lauren, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and perhaps finally capable of truth. What we did to you was unforgivable. I knew exactly what Ryan was doing, and I encouraged it. Not because you were a bad mother, but because you weren't part of our world, and I couldn't bear the thought of Sutherland blood being raised by someone ordinary. I was wrong. About you. About what Emma needed. About everything. In this box, you'll find documentation of every woman we've silenced over the years. Settlements, NDAs, and in some cases, worse. I'm trusting you to do what I was too cowardly to do in life. Tell the truth. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But perhaps this final act can begin to balance the scales of the harm I have caused. Yours in regret, Patricia Sutherland." The safety deposit box contained evidence of 17 other cases. 17 women systematically gaslit, drugged, and erased from their children's lives. Some had taken settlements. Some had disappeared. 2 had died under suspicious circumstances. I brought everything to Victoria. She brought it to the FBI. The resulting investigation dismantled the Sutherland family's entire operation. Ryan went to prison for fraud, malpractice, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. 7 of his colleagues were implicated. The medical dynasty collapsed under the weight of its own corruption. But more importantly, 6 women who'd been forced to give up their children were reunited with them. Custody was restored. Lives were rebuilt. Standing in the courtroom the day Ryan was sentenced, I felt Emma's hand slip into mine. She was 8 now, wise beyond her years. "Is it really over, Mama?" I looked at the man who'd tried to destroy me, now being led away in handcuffs. Thought about the women who'd gotten their children back. The reforms passing through state legislature. The awareness spreading about coercive control in custody cases.
Yes, baby, it's really over. But it wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning for so many others. I turned my consulting firm into a nonprofit. The Survivors Network grew to include therapists, lawyers, investigators, and advocates, all working to support women escaping coercive control in custody situations. We created safe houses, legal funds, and a database of warning signs that family courts could reference. Emma grew up understanding that her mother was a fighter, but also understanding the cost of that fight. She became fierce in her own right, passionate about justice, unwilling to let anyone diminish her worth. On her 16th birthday, she asked me the question I'd been waiting years to answer. "Mom, do you regret marrying Dad? Do you wish none of it had happened?" I thought about the woman I'd been before Ryan, young, naive, desperate to be loved. Then I thought about the woman I'd become through surviving him, strong, purposeful, unbreakable. "I regret what he did," I said carefully. "I regret the time I lost, the pain he caused, but I don't regret you. I don't regret the woman I became in fighting for you, and I don't regret that our story helped save others." She hugged me tight. "I'm proud of you, Mom. I'm proud of us," I whispered back. That night I wrote in my journal, something I'd started doing in therapy years ago. Today, Emma asks if I had regrets. The truth is more complicated than I told her. I regret trusting the wrong person. I regret not recognizing the warning signs. I regret every moment I let them convince me I was broken when I was actually being shattered. But I don't regret surviving. I don't regret fighting. I don't regret becoming the person who could help others fight too. Patricia left me her confession, thinking it would bring redemption. It didn't. Nothing can redeem what they did. But it did bring justice, and sometimes that has to be enough. Ryan will die in prison, his legacy one of cruelty and manipulation. Patricia died with her guilt. And me? I live. Fully, fiercely, without apology. I teach Emma that love should never diminish you, that family should never require you to become less than you are, that survival is its own form of strength. And every time another woman walks into my office with that specific shade of desperation in her eyes, the one that says she's being gaslit into questioning her own reality, I remember sitting in Patricia's study with that contract in front of me. I remember the moment I chose to fight instead of flee, and I help her make the same choice. 10 years after I walked away from the Sutherland mansion with Emma in my arms, I stood on a stage at a national conference on domestic violence and coercive control. Hundreds of survivors, advocates, and professionals filled the audience. "My name is Lauren Blackwell," I began, using the maiden name I'd reclaimed. "And I'm here to tell you that you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're not unfit. If someone is systematically making you question your reality, documenting your behavior while manipulating it, isolating you from support systems while claiming concern, you are not the problem. You are being abused. And you can survive it. I know because I did. Not just survived, but thrived. Built a life I'm proud of. Raised a daughter who's strong and loved and secure. They tried to erase me. Instead, I erased their power to hurt anyone else. That's the thing about women they underestimate. We're not fragile. We're not easy to break. And when we do break, we have this inconvenient habit of putting ourselves back together stronger than before. So to everyone out there questioning whether you're crazy, whether you're remembering things wrong, whether you deserve what's happening to you, you're not. You're not. And you don't. Fight. Document. Find your people. And know that survival isn't just possible. It's inevitable for those of us too stubborn to be erased. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes, but the real victory came afterward, when dozens of women lined up to share their stories, to ask for help, to simply hear that they weren't alone. Emma stood in the back of the room, now 18 and headed to law school, watching her mother with pride. Later, she'd tell me that was the moment she decided to specialize in family law, to carry forward the work we'd started. That night, driving home together, Emma said, "You know what I think is the most powerful thing about your story?" "What's that?" "That they tried to make you disappear, and instead you multiplied. Every woman you help becomes another voice they can't silence. It's like exponential revenge." I laughed, surprised by the insight. Exponential revenge. I like that.
It's better than just surviving, Mom. It's making the world actively hostile to people like Dad and Grandma Patricia. Every system you fix, every law you change, every woman you help makes it harder for the next abuser to succeed. She was right. The work we'd done hadn't just saved individual women, it had started shifting entire systems. Family courts now screened for coercive control. Medical boards investigated suspicious prescribing patterns. Judges received training on recognizing gaslighting and manipulation. The Sutherlands had tried to break one woman and ended up breaking their own paradigm instead. As we pulled into our driveway, I looked at the life we'd built, the small but comfortable house we owned outright, the thriving nonprofit that employed 15 people, the network of survivors who'd become friends, advocates, warriors. "Emma," I said softly, "thank you." "For what?" "For being my reason to fight, for believing me when I couldn't believe myself, for becoming someone who fights for others too." She leaned over and hugged me. "You taught me that the opposite of being a victim isn't being a survivor, it's being a defender. You defend others now, and someday I will too." That night, I received an email from a woman named Jessica. She'd heard my speech. She was currently living in her car with her 2-year-old son, having fled a situation that sounded horrifyingly familiar. She'd been told she was mentally unstable, that she was a danger to her child, that she should voluntarily give up custody. She wanted to know if there was hope. I typed back immediately, "Jessica, there is so much hope, more than you can imagine right now. Here's what we're going to do." And so it continues, one woman at a time, one case at a time, one victory at a time. The Sutherlands tried to write my ending. Instead, I'm writing beginnings for countless others. That's the power they never understood. You can't really erase a person. You can only make them stronger, angrier, and infinitely more dangerous to your ability to hurt anyone else. I was supposed to disappear quietly with my settlement money, broken and silenced. Instead, I became the loudest voice in the room, and I brought receipts. What did this story teach you about the power of refusing to accept someone else's narrative about your worth? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.